Deuteronomy 13 is about apostasy. So it seems. So the first situation is this. What if a prophet comes along, or, one of these dream interpreter types, and even if they say the following will happen, it proved that I'm telling the truth. And even if it comes true, but what they say to you is, hey, let's go follow other gods and serve them. A prophet comes along and says, let's follow other gods and serve them. Well, obviously we put them to death, right? Put to death for having spoken treason against the Lord your God, right? And thus shall we purge evil from our midst. Okay, fair enough. Second category, second case study. What if it's not a prophet? What if it's just your neighbor or a family member even? What if it's your brother or your own kid or your wife or your best friend, and they say, let's go worship other gods? Okay, well, we know, obviously, you kill them, right? Your own hand first, but then the whole town, right? Then all Israel shall hear and be afraid and never again do such wickedness. Okay, a prophet, your own friend. Third case, what if it's an entire town that's pushing for the worship of other gods? What if an entire town is I don't know if I want to do this Yahweh thing anymore. And they say, let's go worship other gods. Well, obviously you kill them. But what does it mean to kill a town? What it means is cherem, which is here the word that's rendered in this translation as utterly destroying it, right? That's the cherem word, right? The ban, the prescription, the utter and complete annihilation. Which is to say, the same cherem, the same utter destruction that is designated for the Canaanites upon the initial conquest of Canaan, right? The Canaanites with their terrible worship practices and their idolatry, right? That same practice is also designated for Israelites who look to worship other gods. And since, as I've said, there weren't any Canaanites around when Deuteronomy was written, who is all of this cherem language really for? It's not for the past. It's for the present. It's not for how you should treat Canaanites, but how you should treat Israelites. A moral equation is being constructed here. Israelites who look to worship other gods are essentially Canaanites and deserve the same treatment. But also, Israelites who worship in the ways defined as Canaanite, using sacred poles, standing stones, bowing down to idols, or worshiping anywhere they like, on the hills, under the green trees, rather than in the one place where God chooses to place his name. Israelites who worship incorrectly are also Canaanites. Centralization is about authority and control over worship practices. And the rules of warfare, with cherem for the Canaanites, and the rules of apostasy here are all actually part of that same discourse. So what's really at stake for Deuteronomy? Not the past practices of the extinct Canaanite people, but the present practices of those Israelites who are not on board with Deuteronomy's program. Deuteronomy uses past-facing rhetoric, right, looking toward the Canaanites, to defame and to other those in its own day who disagree with it theologically and politically. Right? Remember the language of, right, and so you shall purge evil from your midst? Right? I have to tell you, that language feels really familiar today, right? We have to purge evil from our midst. Right? And on top of that, Deuteronomy is, as I said at length earlier, it's using treaty language. So take this chapter, Deuteronomy 13, and replace worship other gods. Hey, let's go worship other gods with hey, let's pledge allegiance to a different king. And it still makes all the sense in the world. You might think this is totally natural. Of course, Israel should worship Israel's God. But it's framed even in the very literary genre employed, that is the vassal treaty, in coercive terms. This is a suzerain speaking to a vassal. There's a power dynamic. There's always an implicit threat involved. But there's an explicit threat as well. You follow me or you will die. Right? And this law in Deuteronomy 13 empowers Israelites to police other Israelites. Did you see your neighbor acting not faithfully to Yahweh? You are empowered by this law to go ahead and kill them. Deuteronomy is often claimed to be, and truly it is, something like a constitution for this new political entity, which is the people of Israel. That's how it presents itself. I think that's what it's meant to be. It is a constitutional in that sense. But it's also creating a police state with a national religion and with all the dangers that come with the establishment of a national religion, and not just a national religion, but like a specific set of practices for that national religion, right? It's as if, I don't need to look very far for examples, right? It's as if it were claimed that the only way you could, be a real American is if you followed, what's the least likely, like Lutheranism. Right? Deuteronomy presents us with really the model for religious nationalism.